Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the show. I don't really know what to say as far as having a pithy or humorous introduction. Just doesn't quite seem appropriate today, does it? So, um, let me begin, as always, with the questions that have been submitted ahead of time by my wonderful patrons and members. And once I have answered those to the best of my ability, I will turn my full attention to the live chat, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So let's begin. Wrong button. There we go. Professional. My first question comes from Matt, who says, with how Strange New Worlds being a pretty good show, do you think they could take on the mirror universe in a fun way? Personally, that arc was my favorite on season 1 and 2 of Discovery. I may be in the minority for that opinion. It's always fun to see evil versions of characters. What did you think of Discovery's mirror episodes or the concept in general? Could Ensign, Mount, etc., pull it off in Strange New Worlds? Um, I really hope that we never see the mirror universe again. It is a concept that I think has run its course, to say the least. I did not really enjoy the mirror universe episodes of Discovery. I felt, especially that long stretch in the first season where it felt like they were just there forever. It really seemed like the story of season one ran off the road and just drove through the mirror universe for 3 or 4 episodes before it got back on the road. I was not a fan. I didn't think it was particularly rewarding or good, aside from a few little things here and there. Like, I thought the idea of Captain Killy was fun, but wasn't really explored. I thought Emperor Giorgio was fun. But I mean, no, I was not a fan of the mirror universe stuff. I I don't think any of the mirror universe stuff has been very good since the first Deep Space Nine mirror universe episode, to be brutally honest. I think it's a joke concept, and I think it only really works when it's treated like a joke. And the problem is that the subsequent revisitations of it have either not treated it like a joke or just made the same joke that they've made before. So, no, I mean, do I think Anson Mount could pull it off? Well, sure, Anson Mount is great. Anson Mount showed in this week's episode that he could pull off doing Pike in a very different way, in an altered consciousness or a different personality. Not just Anson Mount, the entire cast is fantastic. I'm sure if the cast got the chance to do mirror universe versions of their characters, I'm sure they would all do fabulously with it. But that doesn't mean I think it's a good idea. And it's certainly not an idea that I would be interested in. Now, again, as I always say, what really matters is the quality of the story and the execution. So while, if I were the head writer or the executive producer or whatever of Strange New Worlds, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to do a mirror universe episode?" My instinctive response would be no. But if somebody came to me with what sounded like a really good idea, then of course I'd be open to it. But I mean, I'd be open to be convinced, but just the the basic pitch of let's do a mirror universe episode, no, I'm not interested in that. Um, Alexander Darkov, if you have been watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, what have been your thoughts on it? Give it the same thought you do to the new Star Trek shows. Um, I did watch it. I watched all 6 episodes of it against my better judgment. I didn't think it was very good. I even the bits of it that other people have said were the high points didn't really work for me. I will say this: I didn't think it was awful. I wasn't like, yeah, sitting there watching it, hating myself for watching it. It wasn't like cringe-inducingly bad or embarrassingly bad at any point, really. It just felt superfluous, pointless. It added nothing to anything. It only exists because of this broader connection that it has to other Star Trek projects, and it adds nothing to any of those projects. It doesn't improve or change the way I view any of those, and it has nothing in its own right to justify its existence. Ewan McGregor is fine as Obi-Wan. He's a fantastic actor, and he's doing good work. The rest of the cast, what was Moses Ingram, who plays the third sister? She's fine. The character is written absolutely terribly, but she herself gives a perfectly fine performance with what little she has to work with. But it wasn't a good show. It wasn't very well written. The villains were some of the most ineffectual villains I've ever seen in any Star Wars project. They do nothing on screen practically but fail. I mean, even Darth Vader. Darth Vader, what does Darth Vader do in the show other than fail to kill Obi-Wan 2 or 3 times? Ooh, big scary villain. The guy who always fails, and the Grand Inquisitors. Oh, the guys who are so bad at their jobs, even when they stab people with lightsabers, it doesn't work. They're the most ineffectual loser villains that I can imagine. So, and the thing is, if you have, and the reason I say that as a big deal, if you create a villain in your story, and all the villain does is fuck up and lose and fail, then that villain serves no purpose in the story. That villain is not a threat. That villain is not a credible obstacle to the hero to stop the hero from achieving their goal. If you just, there's no drama, there's no tension. Well, of course, the hero is gonna overcome the villain. These villains always lose. All this show has shown us of them is when they fail. So that's why that's a problem. So no, I did not enjoy the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I mean, it's better than the prequel movies, but that is not very high praise for me because I think all 3 prequels are absolutely awful. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good in any meaningful way. So no, and it did not creatively justify its existence. So I did not enjoy it very much at all. Stephen G. Clenard. Steve, you're a DC Comics guy. Maybe you can help me with some questions that have been vexing me for some time. It's been a year since I posed the first of such questions, and thanks to your gracious wisdom and patience, I have finally found a modicum of peace. Although many, many questions remain, I find them less vexatious than before. Thank you. But just as all good things must pass, so too must whatever this is. Speaking of which, do you think this would make a good conclusion to this series? Sentimental retrospective flashback montage with sappy music, remembering the good times and the bad, the laughter and the tears, from fearsome friends such as Pig Latin Man, the Trick or Treat Gang, and Bob, Fifth Dimensional Imp, to stalwart superheroes such as Hummus Man, Jesus Christ Man, and relentlessly dunking on Zack Snyder Man. It's been a fantastical, action-packed journey, but no matter where the winds of time may blow us, always remember, we'll always have Mook. Thoughts? It's been a good run. If it has to end, I'm sorry that it has to end, but you know what else? If it does have to end, I'm glad that now we can take all of these questions, all of these pitches, all of these characters that you've shared with us, and we can view it as a complete object. Now it's finished. Now we can appreciate it in the fullness of its genius. So, yes, it is sad. It's always sad when a great show or a great series or what have you finishes. But if it has truly been great, then that finishing of the series is never completely tragic because now we can appreciate it as a whole work. So yes, I do think sentimental retrospective flashback montage with sappy music might be warranted for this epic conclusion. Yes, because it certainly has, unlike the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, it certainly has justified its existence creatively in its own right. Jason says, do you think you'll ever just do that Roxanna Troy video anyway, regardless of how it does in the polling? You clearly want to do it, and a lot of us, a large minority, still want to see it. Oh, I'll definitely do it. Yeah. I'll put it in the poll a few more times, and if it doesn't win, then I'll do it at some point. Yeah, I'll sort of fit it in as an extra video 1 month. Probably not this year, unless it wins one of the polls. That it's, I expect I'll probably put it in the poll at least once or twice more before the end of the year. And if it doesn't win, I'll figure in some way to do it next year probably, because I am definitely going to do it. But I'm not sure when. But yeah, yes, you are correct. I do clearly want to do it. Joe goes over. Do you feel the Iotians from A Piece of the Action, TOS Season 2, deserve a revisit from a modern Trek series? Or should that episode be viewed with contempt for being a cheaply produced episode, once again using an Earth-based set for an alien civilization? Uh, I don't think it deserves a revisit, but not for that reason. I think that episode is fine. I think it's a fun, good comedic episode, and I don't have a problem with Earth-based sets for alien civilizations or Earth-like aliens or aliens that look like humans. Like, I have no problem with that at all, whether it's a budget reason or just a creative reason. Like, if the Enterprise on Strange New Worlds stops by an alien planet that they've never visited before and all the aliens look just like humans and nobody even mentions it, I have no problem with that whatsoever. That makes no difference to me at all. It probably wouldn't even occur to me. Right? I don't care. Um, but the reason I say it doesn't deserve a revisit is I just don't want modern Trek to do that at all. I don't want the new shows to just go back and revisit shit that the other shows did. I want it to do new stuff. Now, again, as I said with the Mirror Universe question earlier, if there is a good enough story, I'm all for a good story. But just as a basic concept, again, if I were in the writer's room or if it were my show, one of my directives to the writers would be, don't do that. I don't want to hear ideas about, well, let's go back and revisit this planet from this episode of TOS or TNG or Deep Space Nine. I don't want that. I want new stuff. Make up new stuff. There's way too much of that already. Let's go back and check in on these characters or check in on what's going on this planet. No, forget that. That was another show. That was 50 years ago. Don't worry about that. That episode exists. It's fine. If you want to see what's going on Sigma Iosha, whatever it is, Sigma Iosha 2, watch that episode. It's a perfectly fine episode. We don't need to keep revisiting old stuff. Do new stuff. So that's the reason I would be against it, not because I have anything against that episode. I think that episode is perfectly fine. It's just I don't think anything from the old stuff needs to be revisited in the new shows. Kyre, who has money for Patreon again. I was watching the reanimated Voyager Gazelle automations with Tom Paris's Warp 10 experiment. I realized that everyone who goes on to study about the Warp 10 barrier would learn about the transformation, including those at Starfleet Academy. Tom's daughter would come home and have a very interesting conversation with her parents about her half-siblings. What is the most awkward conversation a character in Star Trek would have to explain to a relative or friend? Beverly explaining to Wesley about his ancestors fucking a ghost is easily avoided and best left unspoken. Also, I haven't asked a question in a while, so please, sir, can I have another? What the fuck is with all the good Republicans getting a pass? They vote along party lines like the evil Republicans when helping people is in the vote as always. Do it like a Democrat and rage against the dying of the light in a calm, peaceful manner and in a calm, peaceful, and above all lawful manner. I don't know. I think I would go with the Beverly explaining to Wesley about his ancestors fucking ghosts. I mean, you say it's easily avoided, but all you have to do is write a scene where Wesley finds his grandma's diary or his great grandma's diary. I guess that's all. That's boom. There's your starting point for that conversation. Wesley is on the Enterprise visiting her or something. He's home from the academy or home from traveling with the Traveler or whatever. And Beverly gets off her shift in sick bay, goes to her quarters, and she stops as her blood turns to ice in the doorway when she sees Wesley sitting there on the couch in her quarters reading his great grandma's sex diary, her ghost sex diary. And imagine his added horror when he realizes that some of those pages are dog-eared and it was his mother who did it. Yeah, that's what I would go with. And yeah, the good Republicans thing, and boy, today is definitely a day to be reflecting on that. It's because the Democratic establishment, sort of moderate, middle of the road Democrats, and the Democratic Party leadership is addicted to this myth of finding the good Republicans, reaching out to the good Republicans, redeeming the Republican Party, having a strong Republican Party. There is this addiction to what I think over the last 4 or 5 years especially has been revealed to be an utter fiction, at least at this point in American history, of bipartisanship. We need to be striving for bipartisanship. No, we don't. Not when the other part is the Republican Party that we have today, and honestly that we've had for the last 50 or 60 years at least. Um, you know, it's a democratic establishment thing. It's the fairy tale of the good Republican and wanting to find them and wanting to celebrate them. And I guess they think if we if we overly praise the Liz Cheneys of the world, if we put them up on pedestals, that will encourage more Republicans to be like them and fewer Republicans to be like Trump. But I think we have enough evidence now that that doesn't work, that doesn't make any difference, that all it does is weaken the Democratic position. It doesn't make the Republican Party want to be more like the moderate Republicans. It just weakens the Democratic position. So it's a complete waste of time. But I think that's the reason. It's a misplaced attachment to bipartisanship and the myth of the good Republican. Radar O says, no real question, just want to thank you for the lovely content. If you could answer any question in the world, what would that question be? Stay safe, peace, and long life. Well, thank you very much, Radar O, and thank you for being a supporter and for saying such nice things about me. I can't think of a question. If I could answer any question in the world, what would that question be? What is the secret to immortality? What is the secret to living forever in good health? If I could answer that question, then I would. Black Cover 95. In previous videos, you've established how when it comes to TV, you regard the story itself as more important than continuity integrity. In Ask Away 102, you cited Star Trek's relationship with the eugenics wars as an example. I propose the following scenario. What if in one episode, the Star Trek cast travels back to the 90s and doesn't return to their time until the next episode? In one of these episodes, the 90s looks just like it did in real life. In the other, it's the war-torn version described in Space Seed. Despite taking place in the same time trip, the two are technically independent stories. How would you feel about that? Bonus question, how would you feel about it being part of your canon-proof Star Trek show? Oh, that would definitely work in my canon-proof Star Trek show for sure. If I were trying to do a serious Star Trek show and I wanted people to invest in the drama, I probably would not do that kind of blatant major continuity error from one episode to the next. Unless I was trying to make some kind of point or doing it as like a joke or something. But if it was, one episode where the 90s are clearly one way, and then the very next episode, the 90s are very clearly a completely different way that it doesn't seem like they could have been in the last episode, I probably wouldn't do that, because I feel like that might, especially if I was trying to tell a serious story, because I think that would be distracting to the story I'm trying to tell. When I say I don't care about continuity, it's not so much that I think it's okay to just to not have any continuity on purpose between episodes of your show. It's more like it's not that big of a deal if you have a good enough story, and especially if the continuity being referenced is something that connects to an episode of a completely different show or something that happened, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Like if you have a great idea for a Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode, but your idea writes over something or ignores something or contradicts something from a classic Trek episode, I'm probably not going to care. Like I don't give a shit. It's a different show. It's a different era. I don't really care. I know it's all fake. I don't need it to all make sense, because I don't pretend that it's real when I watch it. When I watch the episode, I become invested in it because I suspend my disbelief, because the show that I'm watching right now pulls me in and gets my attention and makes me invest in it. I don't need to feel like everything makes sense and it's a real world. That's not how I engage with it. But I don't think I would do something like that. No. But if I was doing a show that ended up running for 6 or 7 years, and I did an episode in one of the early seasons that had something to do with the eugenics wars, and then I had an episode in one of the later seasons that had something to do with the eugenics wars, and those two episodes contradicted each other in a way similar to your describing, I probably wouldn't have a huge problem with that if the stories themselves were good enough. I mean, it wouldn't bother me that much. But one episode right after the other, like where it's like it's very clearly an irreconcilable contradiction in consecutive episodes, so that it feels like it was done on purpose, and people watching the show would presumably notice that it was done on purpose, unless there was a reason for me to do that aside from just doing it. I probably wouldn't want to do that. David Colby, phew, I really hated the last 3 episodes of Star Trek, Memento Mori, Spock Amok, and Those Who Walk Away from Omelas, or, I mean, whatever they rewrote the title to be after plagiarizing Ursula K. Le Guin. Put a pin in that. I have thoughts on that, Mr. Colby. And I was getting downright worried. Was Star Trek bad, or worse, was my brain so corrupted by old man grumpiness that I could no longer enjoy it? Had I never actually liked Star Trek after all? But then the most recent episode, Gay Space Pirate Adventures, came out, and I really loved it. Easily one of my favorite Star Trek eps in a long, long time. Good news, everyone. Star Trek is good again. All they had to do was stop writing badly and start writing well. Who knew it was so simple? Anyway, do you ever get worried you're either too negative or too positive about stuff due to irrational feelings? Or is that just my own personal bugbear that no one else worries about? Update, I just finished The Elysian Kingdom, and I enjoyed it too. 2 good episodes in a row. I mean, I would say Strange New Worlds has been 8 good episodes in a row, because I've enjoyed all of them to varying degrees. And actually, one of the ones that you listed as one of them that you hated, Memento Mori, is the one I said was the best Star Trek episode in over 20 years. I think Memento Mori is far and away the best episode Strange New Worlds has done so far. And also, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, aka the one that you claim is a plagiarization of Le Guin, is not a plagiarization of Le Guin. It takes a similar premise to Those Who Walk Away from Omelas, but it is not remotely the same story. It is not a plagiarization of the same story. That original Le Guin story is barely even a story. There's no plot to speak of. It's basically just describing a place and making a point, right? Whereas the Star Trek episode is more like, what if the Enterprise visited that place, or visited a place very much like that? There's so much in that episode that is not taken from the Le Guin story at all. It is added into it. It's an exploration of a similar premise with the assumption that the Enterprise came into contact with this place somehow. So people, I mean, it's obviously inspired by the Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. I'm not saying that the two have no relation to each other at all. It's obviously an inspiration, but to call it a plagiarization is way too far and a little silly. But no, to answer your actual question, no, neither one of those ever bother me. I never get worried that I'm too negative or too positive about stuff due to irrational feelings, because most of the time, and sometimes, I mean, sometimes I have had to have this pointed out to me, but usually I think I'm pretty good about this. I'm pretty aware if I am liking or not liking something due to me having a personal axe to grind, or me having like a personal nostalgia or connection to it. And neither one of those really bothers me. Like, I'm fully willing to admit, you know, the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon from the 80s that I grew up watching is for the most part not good in the way that I would call something else good, right? I'm attached to it nostalgically because it was on when I was a kid, and when I watch it now, I'm watching the same thing that I watched when I was, 5 years old, right? So an emotional connection to it that explains why I like it so much, or that is the reason that I like it so much. And as long as I'm aware of that, that doesn't bother me. I'm fully willing to admit that. So no, that kind of thing doesn't really bother. I'm sure that is the case, not with things other than He-Man, and for negative reasons too. But no, that kind of thing doesn't bother me. I don't really interrogate my personal taste that much, unless I have like a specific reason to, unless some like if I laugh at an offensive joke that I don't realize is offensive or doesn't register as offensive to me, and then someone points it out to me and says, you laugh at that joke, but you wouldn't laugh at this other joke, right? Then I have a reason to examine it. But as a rule, if I'm like, find myself liking something or not liking something, and I think, oh, I wonder if the only reason I like this is because of this, or the only reason I don't like this is because of this, I don't really get too hung up on that. I don't really care. Andrew Priest. So Strange New Worlds is pretty kick-ass. Yeah, take that, David. Me and Andrew are on the same team with this. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it had to go down like that, but lines have to be drawn. Anyway, we've been spoiled for the last 5 years with Trek content that has ranged from excellent at its best to okay at its worst. Well, now Andrew and I have to disagree. But anyway, Lower Decks and to a lesser extent Disco are still the series I look forward to the most, and Picard remains at a solid pretty good throughout in my book. But it's hard to deny just how consistently and comfortably well above average Strange New Worlds has been, from acting to pacing to production to plotting. If it maintains this quality, I'll probably be ranking the series pretty high in my overall preferences list, probably above TNG. What about you, Steve? Where would you put Strange New Worlds? Do you prefer spending time with Pike and his crew over Kirk or Picard or Archer or Cisco? Oh, I'll put it over Archer right now. Sure. I mean, it's tough to compare it to the other shows because we are 8 episodes in. There have been 8 episodes released to the public. So it's hard to take, even the all, you're right. I agree. It has been well above average. Even the episodes that have been kind of shaky for me have still been good. It hasn't done a bad episode yet. It's done one episode, Memento Mori, that I think is as good as the best Trek episodes from any other show. I mean, it was just fantastic. So it's been great. And yes, it has been better than the other shows. It's easily the best currently in production Star Trek series. I mean, it's not even as much as I have enjoyed Discovery. You're right. The consistency of the first season has been phenomenal. As much as I like Discovery, very uneven. Very uneven. It has dizzyingly high highs, but a lot of in the middle and occasionally some lows where you're like, what the fuck were they thinking? And for me, Picard, I do not agree with you about Picard. We feel differently about that. I think especially the second season of Picard, I thought was the worst season of any Star Trek show I've ever seen. But Strange New Worlds has been damn consistent. And if it maintains that level of consistency, if it is occasionally fantastic and never terrible, and it maintains that for a few years, yeah, I could absolutely see it getting up there with TNG and Deep Space Nine. For sure. It would need to carry on like this for a little while, but yes, absolutely. And the crew is terrific. The cast, the fantastic actors. One thing I've said about it before, and I know I've talked about this with Jason, and I think I've talked about it maybe even on an episode of this show. It feels like it knows exactly what it is. It has such confidence right out of the gate. Even the really good Star Trek shows, other Star Trek shows that have started out strong, have still had a period where it seemed like they were still trying to figure out what the show was, what was the tone going to be, what was the main voice of the show going to be. TNG definitely had that in its first season and into its second season. Deep Space Nine had that in its first season, although I still maintain the first season of Deep Space Nine for the most part was excellent. But Strange New World seems like they've got it figured out right away. Like from that first episode, they know what the show is. They know who the characters are. They know how they relate to each other. The cast seems confident and comfortable in their characters. And it's just, they really just hit the ground running. So yeah, it could get to that point easily. It's been an excellent show so far. But again, I feel like I need to temper that by reminding myself and everybody else that we've only seen 8 episodes. So, let's not get carried away. But yeah, so far, so good. Agent Meister, Peldor Joy, Steve, which of the following 2 scenarios would you prefer to find yourself in? Fighting a man-sized duck while listening to the Beastie Boys, or fighting 10 duck-sized men while listening to the Backstreet Boys? P.S. I don't think the TOS episode Spock's Brain is that bad. There, I've said it. Well, I mean, I think it's bad, but I'll still watch it. Like, I don't think it's an enjoyable episode. It's not good in what I would consider the sort of traditional sense. But I'm not embarrassed to say that I've watched it and enjoyed it. I would rather fight the man-sized duck while listening to the Beastie Boys. Because if the duck likes the Beastie Boys too, then maybe after the fight we could kind of bond and become friends, and then I have a friend that is a man-sized duck. Win-win. You know, maybe either the man-sized duck kicks my ass and I show that there's no hard feelings afterwards and offer the man-sized duck a handshake of friendship, or I feel like I could beat the man-sized duck's ass, but I choose to hold back and I let the man-sized duck beat me so that I can then offer the magnanimous post-fight handshake. That would be my strategy. Either he's going to beat my ass honestly and I show respect afterwards, or I let him beat my ass, even though I feel like I could have taken him, and then I show respect magnanimously afterwards. And then we become friends. And then I've got a friend that's a man-sized duck, which is way cooler than having 10 duck-sized men as friends. That's weird. That's weird. Nobody wants 10 duck-sized men as friends. You want one man-sized duck as a friend. That's a friend you can count on. John Burns, in the United States, which corporations are the biggest virtue signalers but the Republicans and the Democrats? And with all the money flowing through both political parties, doesn't that guarantee that since both parties are corporations with unlimited credit, capitalism will never end? And is this a good thing or a bad thing? How to eliminate all political parties in your country? How do you make it illegal for politicians to be anything but independents? I don't foresee political parties being eliminated in the United States at any time in the foreseeable future. And I don't think necessarily that that's what needs to happen. I think the existence of political parties is fine. I think a much bigger problem is the way money interacts with politics, the way fundraising works, the fact that being a politician can be a lifelong career for people. I think I would much rather see campaign finance reform and term limits. And I think those are much more attainable goals than to try and get rid of political parties. You know, if you want to stop political parties from acting like for-profit corporations, then campaign finance reform, maybe like mandate publicly funded elections so that it's not all about who can fundraise the most, and impose term limits so that you know going in that it is not going to be a lifetime gig. You get, so many terms and then you are out and it's fresh blood constantly coming in. I think that would solve those two things. Would not solve all of the problems with our political system by a long shot, but they would be a marked improvement, I think, for sure. Christian, so Jess Bush as Chapel has sort of been the surprise breakout character of Strange New Worlds. Do you think the intention to have her featured so prominently was there before she was cast? What I mean is, she is amazing, and the writing for her is amazing, and it flows so well and is so integral to the show working. I wonder if it was always intended to be that way, and it is just serendipity that it works so well, or if they saw just how well it worked and chose to give that character more screen time. Either way, I can't wait to see more. Um, I don't happen to know which one of those is the case. The second one would not surprise me because that has happened before. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the production process for the season was. I don't know if they had all of the scripts written and locked in before they started shooting, or if they were still writing as they were shooting. Because the way it used to work with an American TV series that would produce, upwards of 20 to 25 episodes a year, they were writing as they were shooting. So if the writers saw the episodes being put together, and this happened in Star Trek in the past, they'd like, oh, this guy playing Garrick is onto something. This guy playing Ducat is onto something. We need to give this guy more time. We need to give her more time. We need to showcase her character more. That would happen. That's happened many times in TV series in the past. I don't know if it can happen quite as easily during the production of a season if it is a 10 episode season, especially given the production changes that had to happen because of COVID these last couple of years. So I mean, if the show was more or less completely written before anybody went in front of the camera, and there wasn't really an opportunity to make major changes in scripts after that, then it's just a case of they cast the right actor and she knocked it out of the park. But if there was still some significant writing going on, while they were shooting other episodes. And the writers saw that Jess Bush was really killing it as Chapel, and they said, "Let's give her more to do." Then yeah, that could be the case, but I honestly don't know. But I agree with you; she's killing it. She's one of the highlights of the season for sure. Um, Especially compared to how that character is in Star Trek the original series. Nurse Chapel is virtually a non-entity in Star Trek the original series. She has no personality to speak of. She has almost nothing meaningful to do. She has maybe that one episode where we find out that she has like an ex-boyfriend on the android planet where she plays an important role, but other than that, she's basically just wallpaper. And in Strange New World, she is a really, really cool, fun, interesting character with some depth even. So yeah, it's been great. And whether it was because they gave her more to do after they saw how good she was initially, or whether it was just a case of they hired the right actor for the job, I'm very happy. Whatever it was, I'm very happy that it happened because she's been terrific. Madeline, hey, hope you're doing well. I don't think you've mentioned going to conventions, but you're a big enough nerd that I'm going to assume you've met some actors. Do you have any fun stories about meeting actors other than not being able to find the house of the guy from Plan 9? Um, I have no. I almost never go to conventions, and I have met no big actors to speak of. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but no, I I don't really have any interest in going to conventions, and I don't really have any interest in meeting actors or stars in that context. So I don't have any stories. I'm I'm sorry, but kudos for remembering that story about me not being able to find Conrad Brooks's house. That was for an event at the library when my now ex-wife was the manager of a library, and Conrad Brooks was supposed to make an appearance at the library, and I was supposed to go pick him up, and I couldn't find the motherfucker's house, so there was no Conrad Brooks appearance. But no, I don't have any stories about meeting actors because I've never really met any because I've never really gone to conventions. I never wanted to. So, so I'm sorry to disappoint you with that really boring non-answer, but no, I have no stories. I have met no one. Um, Horierno says, with the recent shootings in Uvalde, I've noticed a big change in sentiment. People are completely shattered and hopeless. Your video was devoid of perspective. Kathy, even more news, was crying because nothing will change. I haven't seen, I think maybe you mean Katie from Even More News, but anyway, um, I haven't seen the different hosts of the Young Turks this angry and defeated. The NRA has won utterly, completely. Nothing will change, and everyone knows it. This can't be the end of the line for the USA, but where are you guys going from here? Is there even anywhere to go? There's some tiny gun legislation being passed currently, but it's so offensively little. It's obvious this is just to kick the can to kick the can of a few dead children down the road. I'm so glad I'm not American. I can't imagine my kids growing up there. But you know what? I'm glad you're not American too. I wouldn't. I'm glad that you don't have to live here. The gun issue. I mean, I know everybody. Our minds are more on the abortion issue today, and will be for the foreseeable future, I'm sure, and rightfully so. But the gun issue is a very similar thing for me. It does feel like hopeless. It does feel pointless. It does feel like we've had so many chances to make things better and we just haven't. We just, we just haven't. And we have no excuses for not doing it. Um, yeah. And yeah, I mean, you're right. There is some gun legislation being considered in Congress now. It's better than nothing. I support it. I hope that it passes. I'm sure the president will sign it. It's at least something. So I am glad for that. But you're right. It is too little, too late. It is offensively meager, and that in and of itself is kind of upsetting. That after all these shootings, after all these years of tens of thousands of people dying gun-related deaths in the country every year, that finally our politicians at the federal level decide to do something, and what they do is this: more background checks, more funding for school security, raising the age limit to purchase certain kinds of guns. Like, it's not nothing. It's at least it's something. But is it anywhere near what it needs to be? Does it even approach like a bare minimum of what we should be doing? No, it doesn't. But it's better than nothing. So I will take it, but I will treat it as the measured partial victory that it is. I'm not going to be turning cartwheels over it, but I will say it is better than nothing, and I'm glad that they're passing something. General Contact Unit problem child. Number one, I've noticed Stranger Things keeps doing a thing where outcast characters, i.e., nerds and queer people, assume Steve Harrington will be an asshole because he's a rich jock, and then they're surprised he's a nice guy. What are the Duffers trying to say with that? Too many people assume privileged white guys are jerks without meeting them? I get don't judge a book by its cover is usually a good message, but that seems like a problematic demographic to associate it with. Two, I've been rewatching Discovery with people on Discord. In the first season, there's a plot point where Ash thinks he was raped by his Klingon prison guard, but later it turns out he's just remembering having consensual sex with her as Volk. Given how much rape victims are gaslit in real life, is it fucked up to do a story where a character says they were raped, but then it just turns out they misremembered a consensual encounter? P.S. Solidarity with Ukraine. P.S. Happy last week of Pride. And as usual, I will go along strongly with both of your PSs. Solidarity with Ukraine, and yes, happy Pride, happy last week of Pride to everybody. I think the Steve thing at this point is just a joke. I don't think it's meant to send a message of don't judge a book by its cover. I think it's meant to be a joke specific to Steve. Because remember when the show started, he kind of was an asshole. Like he has become a more admirable, heroic character throughout the series as a result of his experiences. In the first season, he was kind of a jerk, and then he became not a jerk through the course of the story. Like that was his arc. So the fact that people see him or know his background or whatever and assume he's an asshole at this point, I think that's just a joke. I don't think that's the Duffer brothers trying to tell us anything about people like Steve and how we shouldn't be so judgmental. I think it's just a joke at Steve's expense at this point, because one of the other things the show likes to do is make fun of Steve. It's one of the reasons why he's my favorite character, because he is legitimately a good, heroic, likable character at this point, but he's also often the butt of lots and lots of jokes. And he's sort of the long-suffering character. Even though he has probably improved himself more than any of the other characters in the show. But that's what I think it is. And yeah, I think that is fucked up. I mean, Star Trek has even just recently, Star Trek has gotten better at representing these sorts of things, but it doesn't have the best track record for sexual assault related stories. And I think that's an example of it. I don't think it was done intentionally, but I think it's an oversight. I don't think the writers of that episode or the writers of that storyline realized the message that could potentially be taken from that. That, oh, the rape victim, oh, it turns out there was no rape. They were just remembering it wrong. That's not the best, it's not the best message. That's not the best portrayal of a sexual assault in a story. So I agree that that's not cool, and something that should have been handled in a different way for sure. Sangel says, "Hey Steve, I hope you're doing well. You mentioned working as a copywriter of sorts a while back. Can you tell me what your experience was like? My sister has been getting into text broking / copywriting on the side. She also has 2 teaching jobs. She gets down on herself a lot and thinks if she would just have more focus, she can expand to bigger clients. I don't know much about this field, but how likely is it for that to happen? She's making a career change and starting at the bottom. Totally fine, but she's overworked with her 2 other jobs. I want her to be more realistic without dashing her dreams. I think you said that this was something you would do if you hadn't found YouTube. What is the likelihood that she can make a stable income out of this? And what do you think this path to bigger clients would be like? I feel like she's listening to a lot of get rich quick types of people and is not getting a realistic assessment of what this will take. What do you think?" I don't think she should expect that it should replace the equivalent of like a comfortable full-time income. I think she would be better off treating it as a side gig. And then if she does happen to attract the attention of larger clients who are willing to give her bigger jobs that pay more, then that's great. But I don't think she should count on that. And I don't think she should, at the entry level, at least with the groups that I used to do it for, at the entry level, even if you treat it as like a full-time job and you're just writing 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, like you would at a normal 40-hour-a-week job, it would probably be tough to make a comfortable living at it at the beginning. Now, if you are somehow, if you have other support, if you have like a spouse who is paying most of the bills and you can afford to take a hit in your overall income and work on the text broker job for with those kind of hours for a significant period of time so that you can build up a reputation with that company and people would, and you do a good job, you do good work and you do that much of it that consistently, um, then there is more of a chance that you will attract the attention of a larger client and be able to work and earn more money for the same amount of work or earn more for less work. Like that's kind of the way it works. Um, but if you don't have that, but even that is certainly not a guarantee. Um, but and if you don't have the ability to do that, to devote that either the ability or the interest to do that and to write that much for that long in the hopes of, working your way up and maybe attracting the attention of a regular client who wants to give you consistent work that pays good, then I would say just treat it like a side gig, work on it however many hours a week you can afford to devote to it, take the extra money. And, if you do it consistently and for a long time, eventually you will earn more at it. You will, attract better paying gigs or get the opportunity to accept better paying gigs. But I would not recommend that she treat it as anything other than a side gig, and see where it goes from there. She may get lucky or may get an opportunity to make a lot more money at it, but probably not. And it'll probably be just a reliable, decent side gig, for her, or as it would be for most people. That's what I would recommend. I would certainly not encourage her to start looking at it at this point, at the entry level point, as a potential career. Maybe at some point in the future, if she's able to really, really work at it and put in a lot of time. But as I said, even that, I would not want to count on that. But if I mean, if you look at it in its proper place and you put it in the right perspective, I think it can be a good way to make some extra money. But I wouldn't want to count on it, especially if you are like the breadwinner for the household, and you have like a spouse or kids or people to take care of. I wouldn't count on making that much money at it to be able to do that. But if you just need a part-time job or you just have yourself to take care of and you can live modestly, yeah, and it's certainly an option. Some random geek who has friends being crushed by capitalism. Do I have a messiah complex? Some folks think that when I tell them that I give roughly 60 to 65% of my take-home pay to my disabled friends like Joanna, Phoenix, LQ, and Naz, I am maintaining $22,000 of credit card debt, charging my 2 credit cards close to their limit, sometimes over, to give money to them. I'm afraid if I don't, they won't receive enough money to cover their bills that could lose their housing or starve. I'm afraid I've been neglecting Phoenix. They are crying themselves to sleep as many of their bills are overdue, and credit card companies are calling them. I'm afraid I don't make enough to give to my friends just to survive, hence why I work 60 hours each week for the overtime. I'm now in the habit of, after every paycheck, figuring out how much money I have available and deciding who to give to. In the short term, the only way to help Joanna, Phoenix, LQ, and Nas is to give them money. The Dems won't do that for sure. Do I have a messiah complex? I don't know if you have a messiah complex. You feel responsible for helping your friends who are in a very desperate need. I don't know if that means that you have a messiah complex. I think someone maybe could say that you are taking on too much, that you are assuming too much responsibility, for good reasons. Like, because because you love your friends and you are a good empathetic person and you want to help people in need. Um, you know, you may be overextending yourself, overworking yourself, holding yourself accountable for things that it is not fair to hold yourself accountable for. Um, but I don't think that equals a messiah complex. And I have not, I mean, you and I only know each other through this. We're not like best buddies or anything. But we've known each other for several years. And I think I know you at least a little bit. And I have never had the thought, oh, they've got a messiah complex. Like, that's never occurred to me. You have never struck me as that. So based on my limited experience with you, but my limited but long running experience with you, I would not say that you have a messiah complex. But I am not necessarily the one. I'm not necessarily the one who would know better than anybody else. Russell, hey Steve, long no see. Been busy with work and I recently became a grandpa. She is so adorable. Well, congratulations. Anyway, I vowed myself not to miss another opportunity to miss another chance to ask a question. So that being said, here goes. I've been doing a solid rewatch of DS9 and was wondering, is it me or does episodes like the Jem'Hadar and the Search Part 1 and 2 seem inconsistent in regards toward their treatment towards Odo? Let me point out a few details. The Vorta in Jem'Hadar doesn't even acknowledge Odo, and in the Search, Odo gives a command to a Vorta and he says, I can't allow that. Seems unlikely given there afterwards they treat him as a founder. Anyways, wanted to ask this for a while and wanted your opinion. Hope you're well. Look forward to hearing your response. I do think that's inconsistent compared to how Odo is treated later on in the series, and I think it's just because they hadn't thought of that yet. I mean, I think that's the long and short of it. When they introduce the Dominion and they introduce the Founders and they reveal that the Founders are Odo's people, I think at the beginning of that they had not thought through, oh, wait a minute, if Odo is a founder, then wouldn't these other races that were genetically engineered to serve the founders, well, wouldn't they defer to Odo as well? Because technically he is a founder, he's of the same species as the founders. I don't think they had thought of that yet. So that's why there's an inconsistency. When they thought of it, they said, okay, now they're going to be deferential to Odo from now on. And I think they were pretty consistent with that from that point forward. But that's the reason. As far as I know, there's never been an in-story reason, and I don't really expect there to be one or demand there to be one because the writers hadn't thought of it yet, and that is a perfectly fine explanation for me because it's all made up anyway. And once again, congratulations on the grandchild. That's wonderful. Jacob Monroe, what exactly is the point of the All Atlantic Championship? Having another secondary title seems redundant to me. Aren't the World and TNT Championships already open to international challengers? Also, any chance Tanahashi wins at Forbidden Door? P.S. Fuck Mitch McConnell. Boy. That last bit is something I can drink to. I think there is a chance Tanahashi wins. It's possible. I mean, the original plan was to do Tanahashi versus Punk. So if Tony Khan could work out a deal with New Japan where they could have Tanahashi for a couple of dates here and there to appear as the world champion in the United States, and if Punk is not going to be out too terribly long, if Punk is only going to be out maybe for a couple of months, and they can get enough dates with Tanahashi to show up on TV and maybe defend the title a couple of times, so that he works as an interim world champion, and it's not just him winning the interim world title and then disappearing again. I could see Tanahashi winning the title, and then they have Punk versus Tanahashi when Punk comes back, and they have it for the unification match. So it's possible. Now, I don't expect that. I expect Moxley to win for the simple fact that Moxley is an AEW guy. And if Moxley has the title, you don't need to worry about, oh, can we get enough dates for him to show up and defend the title until Punk comes back? Like, you have your guy with the title. It's not a guy who works for another company that you have an agreement with. It's your guy. So I expect Moxley to win the match. But is it possible for Tanahashi to win? Sure, of course. And I agree with you completely about the All Atlantic Championship. That feels so pointless. It feels rushed. I don't think they need another singles title. I don't think they need another title, period. I think the way they have things set up currently with there's a men's and women's world title and a men's and women's mid-card title and a men's tag team title, and presumably if they are able to grow the women's roster a little bit and get a little bit more diversity and competition in the women's division, they would presumably at some point establish a women's tag team title, which I will be fine with that, because then you have a male and female version of each championship. And yeah, having another men's mid-card title makes no sense at all. The idea of the All Atlantic Championship specifically makes no sense, because it's called the All Atlantic Championship, but the Japanese flag is on the belt. And Tony Khan says the idea is that it's a title to showcase international talent, which again is fine. I don't think they need another title to begin with, but the idea of a title specifically to focus on international talent is fine. But why not call it the international title? Or how about this? Come up with a new, call it the transoceanic title. Never been a title called that before, as far as I can remember. The AEW transoceanic title. So that way you're talking about wrestlers from overseas, from outside the United States, but you're not talking about the Atlantic or the Pacific or any particular ocean. It's just it evokes internationalism, right? Yeah, all Atlantic it's you know, they don't need another belt. It's a confusing name and concept for the belt that they have chosen. It's just a bad idea. The tournament for it seems incredibly rushed. It's going to be decided with a 4-way match on the pay-per-view. It just seems like a bad idea, poorly executed all around. Isaiah Taylor, I was going to ask a question, but I was caught off guard by this morning's events. Sad day for this country. I'm going to miss today's Ask Away to attend a pro-choice rally. I'm deeply sorry. I will also be missing the Patreon hangout on Sunday to go to a model train show. Again, sorry. I've had such a shit week after being almost scammed out of getting a used car. Stay safe, everyone. I'm so pissed right now. Well, I'm sorry about the used car thing. That sucks. And listen, no need to apologize at all. If you're missing this, watching this live stream to go to a pro-choice rally, I'm proud of you. That's a great reason to miss this or anybody's YouTube show. That's fantastic and good for you. And good, if I understand missing the Patreon hangout on Sunday too. I mean, who doesn't love model trains? Go have fun at the train show, my friend. And I'm sorry you've had a shitty week. That sucks a lot. It's a shitty time. It's been a shitty day for a lot of people. So there's nothing wrong with feeling shitty about it. So I hope you're having a good time at the pro-choice rally and fighting the good fight, and I hope you have a good time at the train show on Sunday for sure. We'll miss you. Joe McClory, I've been getting the What is Woman ads a lot lately and have been thinking a lot about how it might look to see a documentary on asking conservatives about their talking points, asking them what CRT is, what they mean when they say groomer, what family values are, or hell, even what they think makes a woman, and follow up by asking about people on the edges of their definitions. It is disappointing that there are not more people using their tactics and talking points against them, asking them actually tough questions about what their actual policies are besides reversing progress, and asking when they would have enough. Do you know of anyone doing content like that? Do you agree with me about wanting to see more of it? I don't know anyone off the top of my head doing content like that, but yeah, I think that's a great idea. I remember when Jimmy Kimmel used to do it, and I think Jay Leno did a version of it once upon a time on his Tonight Show as well, where they would do like the man on the street interviews. I think Howard Stern used to do it too. They'd do man on the street interviews where they would ask people questions and then they would play their wrong answers. And like the whole point was, look how stupid the average person is. They would ask them questions about, current events or how the US government works, or, just to prove like how out of touch and how ignorant the people that they were interviewing were. And it would be cool to have like a more targeted version of that, like go to CPAC or go to some religious, right-wing religious convention, or some other area where that like Republicans or right-wingers or people like that will congregate, and do that kind of a segment, but specific to those people who have those beliefs. And make a mockery of them. And the point is not just, well, the average person is dumb. The point is, look at these hypocrites who cannot even articulate their own supposed views and values and can't answer basic questions about this shit that they believe. I think that's a great idea, but I don't know of anyone at the moment who is doing that. But yes, I agree with you. That would be a good thing to do more of that. Yeah. Scott P. Hey, Steve. Before today, I had an idea of what I wanted to ask, but the news about Roe v. Wade being overturned has impeded that somewhat. So instead, I will start off by saying to support any abortion funds you can, support Planned Parenthood, support those in your life that need access to abortions and other contraceptives, and make your outrage known to the people up top. I would also implore my fellow betestical people to consider getting vasectomies if you do not intend on having children. I will now gush. I will now spend the rest of my allotted space to gush about Better Call Saul and why you should watch it. It is truly one of the best written, acted, and directed series I have seen in the last 20 years. While I still really like Breaking Bad, BCS has surpassed it in every way. The characters and their relationships are complex and layered, and the cinematography is always top notch. While watching Breaking Bad first helps, the show is strong enough to stand on its own. Well, I have heard nothing but good things about it. So I've never seen it, and I've never watched Breaking Bad either. No, I haven't been purposely avoiding it. I just, it's just I haven't gotten around to watching it. Um, but I've heard nothing but good things about either show or both shows. So that fits right in with with the impression I've had that they're excellent shows. And yeah, as far as the abortion thing, look, I was going to mention this at the end of the show, but I'll mention it now. In the description of this live stream, there is a list of abortion charities and pro-abortion organizations. If you have some money or you feel the need to do something to help, you can donate to one of those organizations. There's a link there to NARAL, to Planned Parenthood, to an organization that is specifically devoted to helping women, and not just women, because they're some trans people can become pregnant and need access to abortion as well. I like you saying betesticled people, so uterus havers, anyone who can become pregnant and might want to get an abortion. It's dedicated to getting the resources together for people who need to travel to get their abortion because they live in an area where abortion is not available or where abortion is or shortly will be illegal. It aids them in doing that. So you can support that organization, and or if there's a local organization or a local clinic in your area that you want to donate to, I would encourage you to do that. But yes, let's please do that. As much as we are able, because that sort of support is needed now more than ever. And yeah, as a person who got a vasectomy last year, I can tell you I have no regrets and I have had no ill effects from it. So yes, if that is something that you are considering having done, I would encourage you to look into that and find a good doctor and do it, because I did, and it's been great. And the recovery was not that bad for me. I can only speak for myself, but the recovery was not that bad at all. Dana the Discouraged. Hi, Steve. It's been a very rough week given the SCOTUS rulings. I live in Georgia, which is considered a battleground state, as it went for Biden and got 2 Democrat Senate seats in 2020, but by very narrow margins. Midterm elections are later this year. Even those who don't have a Senate election can support candidates in close races. Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. If you can't send money, follow them on social media and share their messages. I'll send you links to their web pages. Will you put them in the description? Well, of course I will, and of course I have. If you look in the description of this live stream that you are watching right now, right below the section where there's the abortion charities to donate to, there is a list of candidates and their websites that Dana sent me earlier, of Democrats running for office, running for the Senate in battleground states or states where it's the race looks like it's going to be close. And I would encourage you to donate to any or all of those candidates as well. I know that a lot of us are very upset and very discouraged and very sort of at the end of our rope with the Democratic Party after the Roe decision, and I am right there with you. I appreciate your frustration and your anger. But as much as the Democrats have dropped the ball on this, and I think it's fair to say they have, not just recently, but over the last many years, and as frustrated as I am with them, the harsh truth is that if they continue to lose, this sort of thing will only get worse. And I don't say that because I want to do a commercial for the Democrats or to help fundraise for them. I do that because I feel like I have no choice but to do that. If the Republicans continue to win, things will only continue to get worse and get worse a lot faster. So I'm not going to tell you just vote, because just voting is not enough. But voting for Democrats is something that we need to do. It is one of the things we need to do. It's not the only thing. And if anybody says that it's the only thing you need to do, or it's that voting alone will fix it, that is not true. but voting is something you need to do. So I'm not going to say shut up and vote. I'm going to say no, talk, yell, scream, raise hell, protest, but also vote and support candidates like these if you are able to. And last patron and member question from Kevin Jones. Last minute question alert. When I was a kid, I used to take Star Trek as a roadmap of what the future would probably be. Now that I'm old and cynical, I can't see how our society will ever get there. What do you think our chances are of living under the flag of the Federation? In a few hundred years, maybe. I mean, let's not forget the original Star Trek takes place in the 23rd century, and TNG and the ones after that take place in the 24th. Even Enterprise is is still over 100 years away, as far as our current date. So, I mean, it was never supposed to happen anytime soon. It was never going to happen in our lifetime. Is it possible? Sure. We really, really have to get our shit together. But I think that's sort of the message of Star Trek as far as that goes. It's not so much a roadmap as it is a promise of how good things could be if we got past our bullshit. It's not a roadmap because it doesn't specifically lay out a path for how we get from here to there, but it says if we can, and we look at Star Trek and we say, okay, they seem Earth and human society in general in Star Trek seems to have things pretty good. Well, what do they do that we're not doing? Well, look at the diversity. People of different races and ethnicities and religions and national origins and such. They seem like they're able to get along, and there's not really any prejudice or inequality or institutionalized discrimination. So we need to overcome those problems, get rid of those things. Captain Picard says that acquiring wealth is no longer the driving force of life. So we need to get past that. We need to stop reducing everything to the profit motive. That would be a big step forward and a big step toward, getting from where we're at now to a Star Trek-like existence, a Federation-like society. In the City on the Edge of Forever, Captain Kirk says to Edith Keeler, one day they'll take all the money. Well, Edith starts the sentence and Kirk finishes it. She says, one day they'll take all the money that they spend on weapons and war and death, and they'll start spending it on life, which is sentimental and very vague and non-specific, but it's just the idea. It's a reorientation of priorities. Instead of focusing on all of this stuff, we take the same resources and the same energy and we focus it on this stuff. So if we do that, yeah, of course, but it's going to take a lot of time, and I don't think any of us are going to live to see it. But it's possible. And if we look at Star Trek not as a roadmap, but as sort of an overall goal, then I think it's helpful, and in the very long term, I think it's doable. So anyway, that's it for the patron and member questions. And now I would be very, very happy indeed to spend the remainder of the show hanging out with everybody in the live chat. Hi, everybody. Let's see what we're talking about. Yeah, Homebody, that's a good, yeah. Also, there was a devastating world war before the world changed in Star Trek. Yes, that's very true. There was all of the good stuff that happens in Star Trek is post World War III. So, and if we can avoid World War III, I think we should do that. I don't think we should let it happen for the reason of, well, maybe this is what gets us to Star Trek. No, let's try to prevent it anyway. Daryl Lett says, what state do you think will re-legalize abortion first? I think Washington State, home of Some Random Geek, will be the first or one of the first. When you say re-legalize it, do you mean a state where it has officially become illegal that will re-legalize it? Or do you mean like a state where it just, there is no specific state law one way or the other? I mean, because if you mean the second one, yeah, probably one of the more left-leaning states. Probably, yeah, Washington State is probably a good bet. But if you mean one of the states where it is now or soon will be explicitly illegal because they passed a law that is now constitutional thanks to this new ruling, I don't know. It's going to be a while. Like if it's not overturned at the federal level, it's going to be a while before those states pass laws on their own to say abortion is legal. I wouldn't even want to guess. Um, oh, thank you, homebody. Andrew had to leave, but wanted to give you his regards. Well, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for stopping by. I'm sorry I missed you. Um, Radical Bacon says, "What's it like being the voice of Gene Roddenberry?" It's so much fun because so far, Jesse has wanted me to do the voice of Gene in videos about sex in Star Trek, so I get to record voiceovers of Gene Roddenberry either being a huge sexist asshole or saying absolutely filthy lines. So it's been a ton of fun. It's been a ton of fun. Oh, Sereno Geek says I included the abortion links in the charity links page. Well, thank you very much. That's really cool. I'm very glad you did that. That's awesome. Kane20C says, I noticed your sweet O's shirt. Are they your team? Do you have a favorite National League team? Can you talk about baseball for a minute? Oh, yeah, the O's are my team. Absolutely. I was born an Orioles fan. My parents and grandparents were Orioles fans. I'm only about an hour from Baltimore. And when I was born, there was no Washington, D.C. team. So I wouldn't have been a Nationals fan. The Orioles are my team. Win or, as is more often the case, lose. Do I have a favorite National League team? I like the Giants. I root for the Giants if they're in the hunt. I like the Braves. My grandfather Pap was a Braves fan going back to when they were the Milwaukee Braves. Even I'm not really sure why. I'm not sure. I never got the story from Pap why he became a Milwaukee Braves fan specifically, but he was a fan of the Braves back then. And then, of course, when they moved to Atlanta and then their games started being broadcast regularly on TBS. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of people became Braves fans in the 90s was all of their games were broadcast on TBS. So they were a team where almost all of their games were nationally broadcast. So a lot of people became Braves fans just because of that. But Pap had been a Braves fan before that. I'm not sure why, but he was always a Braves fan. So I've always had kind of a soft spot for the Braves for that reason as well. John McQuett says there were a few states that still had pre-Roe abortion laws still on the books. Okay, I didn't consider that. That's a good point. Yeah, I think Daryl had a good guess. I think Washington State is probably a good guess. 255 AD says, do you think doing the You Just Imagined the Assault storyline is more egregious if you're doing it in 2017 rather than Voyager in the 90s, which they did with 7 of 9? Yes, I think it is, just because there is a greater awareness now of those issues and of the problems with the way sexual assault victims are treated and the way they're portrayed and the way these kinds of stories are treated with like unwarranted skepticism. Like there are fewer excuses for doing it now. It was still wrong when they did it on Voyager. It was wrong when they did it on TNG. But there's less of an excuse now. So I do think it's worse doing it, in the last few years than it was doing it 10, 15, 20 years ago. Super chat from Nick Jeffrey. Thank you, Nick. Says, we in the UK just had Paramount Plus start up, which means we finally get to start Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We only have episodes 1 through 3 so far, but it's very good. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of it. I think it's awesome. I think it's an awesome show. Tasby12 says, have you ever heard of Nellie Fox, Hall of Fame player, had a bowling alley in Chambersburg, which I understand is close. The name sounds familiar, but I'm not sure if I've heard of her or not. Nellie Fox. And yes, you're right. Chambersburg is just, a relatively short drive from Hagerstown. But no, I don't, the name sounds familiar, but I don't know if I know that much about her. Or him or her. If it's a him, I guess it's a him, Nellie Fox. If it's a major league Hall of Famer, I don't know. I don't know. Um, 255 AD. Also, do you think the oversight might have had something to do with Ash being a man? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think that was certainly part of it. Liam Foley says, do you think today's ruling will backfire on the GOP with a blue wave at midterm elections? God damn it, I sure hope so. I mean, I'm not going to say definitely that it will. The Democrats are going to need to actually do something. They're going to have to actually fight and not just hope that this drops something in their laps, which seems to be their preferred strategy. They're going to have to actually get out and run. But God, I hope there's a blue wave. Of course I do. But no, I mean, it's not just going to happen. It's not like a bunch of people are going to spontaneously rise up and say, "Oh my God, we have to vote for a bunch of Democrats now." Like, the Democrats are going to have to win those votes, and they can if they fight for it. But they can't just sit back and wait for the votes to roll in, as it seems like some of them think that's what they should do. Radical Bacon says, I'm still kind of worried about giving away money to people in need without having like 6 months of savings. And I've only had my real job for a couple of months now, but I feel bad. Well, listen, I understand why you feel bad, but if it means anything, I don't think you need to feel bad. I think that is a completely reasonable concern and a completely reasonable thing to do. There is nothing wrong with taking care of yourself, especially if you are taking care of yourself in the sense of, I want to make sure I can pay my bills and keep a roof over my head and have money for expenses and have a big enough cushion if I need it. Like, there is no shame in that whatsoever. And I think the fact that you feel bad about it is to your credit. You know, I mean, I feel bad that I can't afford to give more money to people in need too. But I need to take care of myself first. You know, if I can't afford to pay my bills, and I certainly can't afford to help anyone else. But I know, so I kind of know the feeling, but I feel like you're okay. Like, you don't have anything to feel bad about there. Oh, okay, Dana. Yeah, Dana's had a rough day, as have a lot of people. Well, okay, I understand. I hope you have a good night's sleep, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for dropping in. And yes, Geek, the patron and members hangout is this Sunday. Absolutely. There's Jason. Hi, Jason. Jason's here. And yes, now you can officially now you can officially go to sleep, Dana. Jason says it's okay. Jason, you told me that you were going to call me if you were going to die. You told me that you were going to call me if you were going to die, and I feel betrayed, quite frankly. Good night, Dana. Anyway, super chat from Telly, who says, who's the cutest pet in Star Trek? Porthos, Spot, or Space Dog? If you're going to put Spot in there, it's obviously Spot. Not only is Spot like physically adorable, but Spot is responsible for the deaths of untold billions. And that is just, I mean, what other pet can compete with that? So, Spot, of course. I think I'm really not going to choose the pet from the show that I'm on. Jason, you hired a sound-alike? There ain't no sound-alike for you. Nobody sounds like you. Yes, Black Cover 95. Opinionville is Jason, yes. 255 AD says, Geek's question, why do some people feel the need to pull down people who are putting themselves out to do good deeds? It's like they take it as a judgment on them for not doing more. Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. You know, there's a lot of people take things personally that are not personally directed at them. You know, I think there's just a reflex that people have, that they react like, oh, so what are you saying? What? So I don't give enough? What are you saying? Like, there's just that kind of, that kind of reaction, you know, and that maybe from insecurity, you know. Yeah, you forgot about the Targs, but honestly, Targs ain't gonna make the list with me. Um, and by the way, Jason, I am glad that you're not dead. I told you that on the phone the other day, but I'm very glad you're not dead. I'm glad that you're still not dead. You weren't dead yesterday. I'm glad that you are still not dead today. So I wanted to update the sentiment in case it didn't speak for itself. Black Cover 95, that is awesome. Every time you see a dog in the street, you'd immediately picture them walking up and going, "I say, gentlemen. Oh, hello." See, Jason, no one sounds like you. God knows I can't do those. I can't do any of your fucking character voices. Oh, Kane 20C, you're listening to American Monsters. That's awesome. Yeah, I think I did mention that on the last show, maybe when you were asking about other podcasts. Yeah, I'm glad you're listening to American Monsters because that is an awesome show. Black Cover 95. Why would Jason be dead? Because all men are mortal. That is why. Nick Jeffrey with the super chat says, "I'm a kleptomaniac and I take things personally." And also apparently a comedy writer. You're also apparently a comedy writer, Nick. Good job. Nicely done. Oh, Telly, I have a stuffed Tribble too. I don't think here he is. Here's my stuffed Tribble. I don't think his battery works. He does make noise if you turn him on and you pet him, or more likely if you smack him really hard, he goes. But no, I have a Tribble too. He has appeared in a couple of videos, and I think I held him in one of the appearances I did in one of Jesse's videos when I played Dr. Racy. I think I was holding a Tribble, and that might I think that's the reason I got it. I wanted to have I needed to have wanted to have a Tribble in the video, and I think he has been featured in one of my Trick Actually videos before too. But yeah, you ain't the only one with a Tribble, okay? I got a Tribble too. All right, take it easy. Bumped into Catwoman. She almost fell down. What the fuck? Oh, Liam, what a great question. How do you like the design of the Strange New Worlds Enterprise as compared to other designs of the Big E? I think it might be my favorite. They tweaked it a little bit from the way it looked in Discovery. When it first showed up in Discovery, I would have said that was my favorite of the classic Enterprise, of the different versions and sort of visualizations of the classic Enterprise. I thought in Discovery, I thought, oh man, that looks so good. That's my favorite. But I think the Strange New Worlds version is my favorite now. Of all the Enterprises and all of the different shows and movies, my favorite is probably the refit from the original series movies with the flat nacelles, the one that was introduced in Star Trek: The Motion Picture and was used until Star Trek 6, that became the Enterprise A at the end of Star Trek 4. That's probably my all-time favorite of any Enterprise. But of the various versions of the original Enterprise, the classic Enterprise, yeah, the Strange New Worlds one is my favorite. Oh, so good. And I love that bridge. I love the bridge set. God damn it. It's just, yeah. Oh yeah, I love it. I love the exterior and the interior. It's fantastic. Paul, is that from Tribble Toys? I have no idea. Are you from Tribble Toys? It is. No, it's from CBS. It's official CBS Star Trek merch. It is not from it is not from a licensee. It is straight from Starfleet headquarters. Radical Bacon, will the Tribble become a character on Stuffy and Friends? I have no plans for that at this time, but you might have just given me an idea. JG, if we're talking interior, my favorite is I really love the aesthetic of Star Trek 6. Especially the bridge. I think the bridge on Star Trek 6 might be my favorite bridge. The Enterprise bridge on Star Trek 6 might be my favorite Star Trek bridge. I love tactility. I love having switches and buttons and things to press and things to move and do. And in Star Trek 2 as well. Like I love in Star Trek 2 the when they're loading the torpedoes and there's that shot of the camera pushing along the floor and the crewmen are pulling the grates up like with hooks to get the torpedoes. I love seeing the crew do physical things that you can recognize and comprehend instead of just pushing buttons. Um, so yeah, I really like the Nicholas Meyer directed movies for the interiors of the Enterprise. But for the exterior, like I said, it's either the original series movies Enterprise or the Strange New Worlds. And Strange New Worlds interiors are fantastic as well. I mean, that's one thing that you can't take away from whether you like or don't like the writing of Discovery. And I have liked it more than I have not liked it, but it has definitely had its ups and downs. But the set design, especially of the ship, has always been top notch. And the set design of the Enterprise and Strange New Worlds is the same deal. It just looks phenomenal. It is a fantastically design set. The production design on the newer Star Trek shows, especially Discovery and Strange New Worlds, has just been remarkable. Um, Opinionville, Jason has a question. I know there are tons of underutilized alien races in Star Trek, but why can't we get a compelling Tellarite character on a series, not counting Prodigy? That's a good question because you think it would be a relatively simple makeup. I mean, they've done alien characters on shows in the past with appliances that you would think would be similarly extensive. I mean, my God, they covered Doug Jones's entire face for Saru, so why wouldn't they be able to do that for a regular character that was a Tellarite? I'm not sure why. It would be fun, if you go with the established sort of Tellarite personality where they're supposed to be argumentative and they're supposed to be kind of always very rough around the edges, and um, that could be a fun personality to introduce into a cast of characters. I'm not sure why. I wouldn't mind seeing a Tellarite. Radical Bacon says, "Did I get to preview Jesse's video?" No, no. I see it whenever anybody else does. And David Colby says, "Speaking of tactile things, what did you think of that delightfully silly science montage that Mbenga does?" Science montage. I'm not sure what that's referring to. You have to give me more. I off the top of my head, I don't recognize what you're referring to when you say science montage. Um, Joe McClory says, "Yes, the Enterprise was introduced in the motion picture the same way a colon is introduced in a scoping." Yeah, you could have cut the runtime of that movie in half if you just trimmed out a lot of those beauty shots of the Enterprise. It's like, look, okay, I'm as big of a Trekkie as anybody. I love the Enterprise as much as anybody, but I got it. Like, I don't need to spend 10 minutes doing a slow motion 360 around the fucking ship, okay? I got it. It's nice. I like it. It's a good looking model. Fuck. Let's just is there a story at all? Is there going to be a story in the movie? Um Some random geek says, "Is $22,000 of credit card debt too much debt for me to have as I give away 60%?" I mean, it sounds like a lot to me, but I am not a financial advisor, so I don't know. It sounds like a lot. Oh, so David, you mean the for during his log entry, during his log entry at the beginning of the episode? I don't really remember anything super silly about it. I'm not really remembering what you're referring to. Um, Black Cover 95. A Tellarite regular would probably be a lot like McCoy, don't you think? It might have been fun to do, if they ever do like, if they ever bring, Dr. McCoy in as a character on one of the new shows, or, maybe they could add like a Tellarite character to the Kelvin timeline crew for the next movie and have McCoy and the Tellarite, maybe give McCoy like a Tellarite nurse or a Tellarite doctor sort of under his command in sickbay that he has to grapple with and bounce off of. That could be fun. Super chat from Nathaniel Peterson, thank you very much, says, did you catch that Benny is apparently the fantasy book author in Strange New Worlds? Thoughts on that crossover? I didn't notice that when I watched the episode. What Nathaniel was referring to there is that the storybook that that Dr. Mbenga is reading his daughter was authored by Benny Russell. Benny Russell, of course, is the persona that Captain Sisko adopts during his visions in the classic Deep Space Nine episode Far Beyond the Stars. I did not notice that when I watched it. I saw other people pointing that out on Twitter, and I mean, it's neat. Like it's an Easter egg, and I don't really. I mean, if it's an Easter egg that I don't even notice, then I can't say I have a problem with it because I didn't even notice it. So clearly it wasn't intrusive, but generally speaking, I don't really like things like that. Because if I notice them, then they do feel intrusive. And I'm just, why did you have to do that? Why does everything have to be a fucking thing? Just, so, I mean, it is what it is. It's harmless, but it's probably not something I would have done if I were writing the show. It's one of those things that is designed to get people to go, ooh, I remember that. And I hate that kind of thing. I just don't like that. There's way too much of that. But it's fine. It's like an in joke sort of, I guess. But no, I missed it. I missed it when I watched the episode. Nick Jeffrey says, recently watched your video about criticism after someone said you were unbiased. What I like about your review style is that you are always honest, but also completely constructive. Well, thank you very much. That's kind of what I aim for. I mean, there's one of my big problems, really my biggest problem with the current state of internet, like film and television criticism, is that it's mostly just people talking about why they hate stuff, and they don't really get too much deeper into it than that. Well, why'd they do that? That sucked. This character did that. What an idiot. He sucked. There's no real analysis. There's no commentary. There's no critique. It's just, I didn't like that. That sucked. And let me just go on a rant about why it sucked, or how much I think it sucked. And that's not a very entertaining or useful form of criticism for me. So I try not to do that. So I'm glad that you think I've hit that mark. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's good to know. Some random geek says, is it possible that the claims of my Messiah complex are out of concern for me overextending myself? Do you think I might be overextending myself? Yes, I think that may be one of the reasons people might say that. And it's certainly possible that you're overextending yourself. Yeah. Again, I can't say because I'm not your financial advisor and I only know what you tell me. But I mean, you very possibly could. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something you should be careful of. But, so yeah, I think that could be part of it for sure. Black Cover 95 says, silly Steve, don't you know Easter egging is the law? Then the law is against my heart, as Jesus said in The Last Temptation of Christ, the movie starring Willem Dafoe as Jesus. Super chat from Joe Goes Over, thank you very much, says, if you put a little more space in between Batman and Catwoman behind you, they would look like a devil and an angel sitting on your shoulders trying to influence your behavior. Ooh. Well, I don't know if I have enough room on the stand, though. Because they're kind of on my nightstand. I guess that works, kind of, doesn't it? If I sit like that, there's Batman over there. There's Catwoman over there. That kind of works. I can't really move them that much further apart, though, because that's as wide as my nightstand is. Good idea. Nick Jeffrey says, it's like with your Picard reviews. I personally enjoyed the show, but the issues about it that made you not enjoy it were things I was able to get past as I just enjoyed the ride. Well, yeah. And I mean, with something like the Picard show, especially in season 2, a lot of my problems with it were obvious from the start, and were were consistent throughout the entire series, and were relatively easy to articulate. And I feel like I could talk about those problems and why they were problems for me in language that didn't make it sound like I was just hating on the show because I was bitter, or because it didn't meet some pre-existing expectation or something. I was saying that, to my eyes, it was a badly written show because of certain failures in just basic writing mechanics. And it wasn't, oh, this show sucks and everybody involved with it should be ashamed and it should be thrown off the air and I hope it gets canceled and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I think this show is badly written, and here is specifically what I think is badly written about it. So I can talk about it in sort of technical terms and writer terms. And it doesn't sound like I'm just some angry, ranting internet commentator, which is what a lot of online movie reviewers sound like. So, yeah. 25 AD says, how come when I repost questions, you're less likely to notice them than on the first post? For a while, I assumed you had a bot that filtered out reviews. No, I don't have a bot. I don't know. Am I less likely to notice them? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. You would think if you post them a whole bunch, I would be more likely to see them if I don't see it the first time. Oh, Nathaniel, thank you for the super chat. I didn't catch what it said before you retracted it. Sereno Geek says Last Temptation of Christ is the best end all be all Jesus movie. Agree? Yeah, I think it is. Pasolini's Gospel According to St. Matthew is also really, really fucking good. If you've never seen that, or if anybody's never seen it, if you've never seen Pier Paolo Pasolini's The Gospel According to St. Matthew, which is an Italian movie about the life of Christ from 1964, I think. It is fantastic. It's the only one I can think of that would give Last Temptation a run for its money. But yeah, Last Temptation is absolutely top notch. Chief Dancing Ostrich. When someone says Messiah complex, I automatically think of Donald Trump. I don't know though. I mean, I think a Messiah complex requires you to. It doesn't. A Messiah complex is kind of mingled in with like a savior complex, right? Because the Messiah isn't just king shit. The Messiah is like the promised one who has come to save everybody. I don't think Donald Trump gives a shit about saving anybody, or perceives himself as a savior to anybody. But I mean, he's definitely a megalomaniac. He definitely has like a, I don't know, what would you even call that? Joe McClory, best Jesus allegory movie. Best Jesus allegory movie. I don't know, maybe Superman. Nathaniel Peterson says, are you against DS9 characters returning to New Trek? I'm torn as it makes the verse small, but damn, I would love to see Cisco once more. Yeah, in general, I'm against it. Yeah. I mean, I'll put it this way. I'm not against it. If they show up and it's good, if it's a good story, then that's great. That's fine by me. But I am not advocating for them to show up just for the sake of it. Again, like I said about the mirror universe, or about revisiting like planets from other episodes, I don't think it's a good thing for the franchise to just spend time bringing back old stuff or revisiting old stuff. I mean, even a series like Strange New Worlds, which is technically a prequel because it is set before the original series, that doesn't mean they need to just keep doing original series stuff. Like they can, and for the most part have, do their own stuff. Focus on, just focus on original characters and original stories. We don't need to see Captain Pike visit, the gangster planet or whatever. Like, do your own stuff. And especially if it's a show that is set further on in the timeline. I mean, if your idea is let's have some people from Deep Space Nine on, I just think by itself that's not a very good idea. If you have a story that justifies bringing them in, then yeah, sure. I mean, again, if it's a good story, I'm all for it. But if it's just let's see these characters again, no, I don't. I'm not in favor of that. Um, Radical Bacon. How about Avery Brooks playing piano in a bar on New Trek? On New Trek, I think Jason and I talked about this once. They should do it. They should have Avery Brooks on a Star Trek show as Avery Brooks, just as himself, completely out of character, sitting at a piano and just kind of noodling at the piano the whole time. That would be that would be fantastic. Um, yeah, Life of Brian is a great Jesus movie, or a Jesus adjacent movie for sure. Geek. David Colby says Cybok is a really neat concept, poorly served by being in a shitty movie. So having him come back but good now is kind of rad. Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen like a Cybok episode yet. He just kind of was revealed at the end of one. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Cybok is there's nothing wrong with him as a character or with the idea of him as a character. I think he has been sort of shat upon and ignored because he was in what is widely considered to be the worst movie. So people just kind of, even when they were really crazy about bringing back old characters, they never brought back Cybok. And now they've decided to do that. So again, if it's a good story, then I'm all for it. I'm certainly not. I have enough trust in Strange New Worlds at this point. I think the show has proven itself to be good enough and reliably good enough that when Cybok shows up, my initial reaction is to be interested in what they have planned for him and not to go, oh Christ, why did they do? Oh my God, they're bringing back Cybok. You know what I mean? Like my reaction is curiosity rather than oh fuck. So yeah. 'Jason says, planning a Star Trek series, but my BF is doing one. How do I do this series without damaging his ego? Working title, Trek Actually Better Than Trek Actually. Asking for a friend. I say you do it and fuck that guy's feelings, whoever he may be. If he can't take it, then fuck him. That's what I say. I hate the title though. Anyway, Kane 20C, last Q&A, we were singing the praises of Star Trek 5 and then Cybok happens. Coincidence? Of course not. I'm sure they rushed that into production. I'm I'm sure that episode was completely done and in the can, and then somebody from the crew or somebody from the production team watched our live stream and they were like, we got to write Cybok into one of these, and they just sort of shoehorned it in. I think that's definitely what happened. Um 225 AD says, I want Boris to stay in power because I think he'll lose at the next election. Is that a bad reason to want a corrupt or criminal politician to stay in power? Um, Not necessarily. Dana and I have had similar conversations regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene because, of course, Dana lives in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district in Georgia. And uh, of course, Georgia has had their primary election, so Marjorie Taylor Greene won the nomination, so she will be seeking reelection to her office, but she was opposed by several Republicans in that race. And Dana was of the opinion that she wanted Marjorie Taylor Greene to win because she felt it would be easier for a Democrat to run against her than a more superficially competent or credible or respectable Republican. And whether you agree with that or not, or think that's a valid strategy or not, or a likely scenario or not, I do think that's a valid strategy. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. If the end goal is to get rid of the shitty politician and you think the best way to get rid of them in the long run is to keep them around for a little bit right now, I think that's okay. John Burns with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. Says, my question included political parties with unlimited credit. It's akin to unlimited power, which is never good for the people. Nobles in armies bad. Yeah, I agree with you. That's, I mean, that's sort of ties in with campaign finance reform. One of the big things about one of the major planks in most proposals of campaign finance reform is either publicly funded elections so that people can donate, but they're donating to a common fund that is then shared equally among the candidates, or just put very, very strict caps, much stricter than we have now, on how much money a political party can or a political campaign can collect in a given time period. I think those are all very good and very necessary ideas. 255 AD, why do you think Trek is afraid of ever explicitly saying the Federation is socialist? I don't know if they are. Black Cover 95. Yeah. I mean, the shorthand is always, or the joke is always there, luxury space communism. That's the Federation. But I don't know if the Federation government and what little we have seen of it and how it works in the various Star Trek shows, I don't know if it is specifically socialist, you know? Maybe it is socialistic. It is it is socialist in the way that certain elements of our present society are socialist or socialistic. But in terms of actually being an explicitly socialist government where the means of production are owned by the people, I don't know if we can say that it is actually specifically socialist. John Burns says, then make all politicians independents. Well, again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying in my question, my answer to your question that you submitted. Like, I don't know how you do that. I mean, I guess you could outlaw political parties, but then that would end up being a freedom of speech issue. You are infringing on the people's right to assemble if you say you can't have political parties. So I'm not sure if that would work. Nick, strong and reasonable is, I mean, sane and reasonable are very important there. Yes. I do think a one party state is a bad idea. I do think a one party state is something we should be trying to avoid for sure. But yes, the opposition needs to be sane and reasonable. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, TASB 12, that's what I feel about Star Trek 5 too. I find it very watchable and very entertaining in a so bad it's good way. And there are things about Star Trek 5 that I like in a genuine way, not a so bad it's good way. There's a loose kind of camaraderie between Kirk and the bridge crew that you see early on that I think is really nice. Like when they all get back to the ship when they've been recalled from shore leave and they're about to get underway to go to Nimbus 3, and Kirk does this thing where he gives his little pep talk to the crew, and then as he's telling Sulu to set a course and get underway, he kind of just reaches out and taps him on the shoulder, just kind of gives him a very sort of intimate, friendly gesture, just touches him on the shoulder, like, let's go, old friend, old buddy, you know? And there's like a closeness implied by that with the crew, and a casualness that and a comfort that I think is really nice. And I've also said, I think I've said in one of my Trek Actually videos, that moment at the end, it's right before Kirk says, "What does God need with a starship?" It's when he just raises his hand and goes, "Excuse me." That to me is one of the quintessential Captain Kirk moments. That is a character defining moment for Captain Kirk, when they are faced with this entity who, from all appearances, is God. And God is laying out his plan to Cybok, and Spock and McCoy are there too. And they're not necessarily like super true believers, but they're kind of taking it in and listening. And Kirk, Captain Kirk, is the one who listens to God's idea, God's proposal. Give me the ship that it can carry my message beyond the barrier, right? And Kirk, his response to God, supposedly, is, excuse me, I have some questions. And that to me is a genuinely good moment. That's like, oh, that's my Captain Kirk. You know, that's my man. Well, Liam Foley says, how do you, the Mirror Universe only working as a joke, how do you feel about the seriousness of the TOS episode Mirror Mirror? I don't think that's a serious episode. I think that's a joke episode. I mean, there are serious things in it, and like the position that the crew finds themselves in the Mirror Universe is serious, like they could be killed, etc. But it's goofy. Like the premise is so, like, Spock's walking around with a fucking goatee. You know what I mean? Like everybody's wearing goofy uniforms, like even goofier than usual. Like it's a joke. It's not like everything in it isn't played for a belly laugh, but the premise is essentially a joke premise. So I don't really consider Mirror Mirror to be a super serious episode. Um, okay, Paul O'Kelly says, one last question. Has there ever been a Republican policy that you have ever agreed with? I mean, I guess if you go back far enough, there is. I mean, if you if you go back to the 1860s, they were anti-slavery, so I agree with that. If you go back to the 1960s, you can find some Republicans who were on board with gun control. Although, I mean, most of that was because they were afraid black people were going to arm themselves. So even their reasonable gun control policies were rooted in racism. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure there have been, but not probably not many, and as a rule, not really. Um, yes, Joe McClure, exactly. Kirk's Columbo moment. I just have one more question. Just one more question. Um, 255 AD, do you think there will be a time in the future, however distant, when queer and femme people can feel safe? Yes, I do. The problem is I have no idea how far in the future that will be. But yes, I do think we will get there eventually. Super chat from John Burns. In the latest Orville episode, Bruce Boxleitner is the new union leader, and he mentions about the future of the union where there is no money. Yeah, I noticed that was Bruce Boxleitner. I kind of wish they hadn't buried him under all that makeup, because it's cool that like they introduced the president of the Planetary Union, and it's Bruce Boxleitner, Captain Sheridan from Babylon 5, who eventually became the president of Earth on Babylon 5, and it's like, oh, that's neat, but they bury him under all that makeup. You can tell it's him as soon as he opens his mouth, because nobody has a voice like that. But but it was neat. It was neat little, a neat little bit of stunt casting to see Bruce Boxleitner there, specifically as the president. Um, yeah, the Brady Bill. I supported the Brady Bill, and there were Republicans who voted for the Brady Bill. So I get, yeah, hey, there you go, Black Cover Down. If I were Republican policies within my lifetime, the Brady Bill, there you go. Um, Radical Bacon, what do you think of the possible Babylon 5 reboot? I'm curious. I mean, I'm neither dreading it nor particularly excited about it. It is an interesting idea to basically give the creator of the original show the opportunity to just do a new show with the same premise. Like that's a really interesting idea. To basically reboot it and say, look, do the same show but change it however you want. Like that's interesting. So I'm curious to see how it turns out, but I am neither trepidatious nor super excited about it. Um, no, Liam, I think it was pretty. I think it probably played as pretty silly even at the time. It's because I mean I know what you mean. There are parts of Star Trek that are hokey today that maybe wouldn't have been so hokey back in 1966 or 67, but Mirror Mirror is pretty silly. So yeah. Anyway, it is almost 8 o'clock, so I'm going to start wrapping things up. Oh, John Burns, Nixon signed the Clean Water Act. There you go. Well, that was before my time. I was not alive during the Nixon administration. Thank God. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap things up for the show. First of all, don't Random Geek. Yes, there is wrestling tonight. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay up and watch it or not. It doesn't start until 10. I may be in bed by then, and I'll DVR it and watch it tomorrow. But yes, there is wrestling tonight. And there's wrestling Sunday night too, which I probably also will not watch live. It's a pay-per-view. I already ordered it. I might just watch it Monday morning. But anyway, so first of all, don't forget the charity links, charitylinks.page, put together by our buddy Some Random Geek to help out some friends of ours who need a helping hand financially. Also, don't forget the abortion funding links, the pro-abortion organizations and charities that are linked in the description. With the overturning of Roe v. Wade today, a lot of us are feeling sort of hopeless and helpless and at a loss. If you are looking for something to do and you want to give money to help organizations that are fighting the good fight as far as reproductive rights, there are links to a bunch of organizations that can help to do that in the description. And also don't forget the political campaigns that are listed for people running for the United States Senate in battleground states. If you want to contribute to some political campaigns of people who will hopefully help us fight the good fight should they win office in November. John Burns with a super chat. Star Trek 12. Shatner describing paint dry. I mean, he is a good voiceover guy. Also, don't forget, if you want to support my work, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives or becoming a channel member by clicking the join button. One of the benefits of becoming a patron or a member is you get to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. And also you get a shot at joining me for the patron and member hangouts, which take place once a month on the last Sunday of the month. And that would be this Sunday, this coming Sunday. 2 days from now will be the patron and member hangout this month. It will be this Sunday starting at noon Eastern time. And if you are a patron or a member at any level, you get the join link to join me and the rest of us in the Zoom call. And it's first come, first serve. And I usually lock the meeting after there are 13 of us in there in total, so it doesn't become complete chaos. But even if you can't get in on the call and join us on the air, you can still watch. Everybody can watch. It'll be live streamed for free. Yeah, so patreon.com/Steve Shives or click the join button to become a member. And also don't forget, in addition to the YouTube thing, I am a part of a pair of awesome podcasts as a part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts. Jason was with us in the chat earlier. Thankfully, we're very grateful that he is recovering from COVID. He still feels pretty bad, but he is on the mend. We have two podcasts that I am on alongside Jason. First is the Late Seating podcast, where we give classic movies a fresh review and see if they deserve whatever reputation they have acquired, be it good or bad. Our most recent Late Seating was our review of the Lou Ferrigno version of Hercules, and our next episode will be a review of one of my favorite films, especially of the last 15, 20 years or so, the classic Paul Thomas Anderson film starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano, There Will Be Blood. And if Jason is up to it, we'll be recording that this weekend, and it'll be out next week. But we will see about the recording schedule. It all depends on the health and the ability of our fearless leader, Jason Harding, and if he's feeling up to it. And also, in addition to late seating, myself and also Dana, who was here earlier, co-star with Jason on the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast. If you enjoy Star Trek and you enjoy the Star Trek stuff that I do on this YouTube channel, and you like Star Trek stuff that's kind of funny and sort of pokes fun at Star Trek, but also is just sort of funny in general, and it's funny because we're funny and we do funny things and we make jokes and stuff, then check out the Ensign's Log. It is a great joy for us to do, and hopefully if you listen to it, you will have a good time as well. Links to all of those are in the video description. And that's it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a yes, he does. Yes, Kane 20. See, he throws things into space. That's really the best part of the movie. Speaking of Hercules, of course. Thank you all so much for watching. Those of you who are patrons and members, thank you so much for your support. Those of you who sent in questions or asked questions in the live chat, thank you so much for participating and hanging out with me. I will see you on Sunday for the patrons and members hangout. And until then, be safe, hang in there, fight the good fight, and take care, everybody. I'll see you.